Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the second in our series of Community Matters Ask Me Anything sessions. For those of you who missed last week's webinar, I'll just give you a really quick recap as to why we're here talking about community today. So research shows that not only do communities deliver a huge ROI when compared to other marketing channels, but actually the value that they create increases with each year that they're active as well. So we've been chatting to a lot of our merchants about this over the past few months. And during the course of those conversations, we came to the conclusion that unfortunately, many of us are shooting for an active customer community, but in fact, what we really have at this stage is simply a customer base. So to solve this conundrum, we wanted to do some consumer research and see how consumers felt about things. So using that, we've put together our community matrix, which will help you to understand the personas within your customer community. Turns out there are four. We have drifters, lurkers, supporters, and insiders. And each of these different profiles are of differing levels of value to your brand. From our research, we also identified that there are some key drivers that motivate consumers to join brand communities and participate in the community-based activities that actually are really valuable to your brand. Again, it turns out there are three key areas here. Firstly, the transactional, that's things like discounts and free shipping. The emotional, things like knowing a brand's backstory and connecting on a common cause. And then experience-based things like being able to make more confident purchasing decisions or speaking to other people who've made that purchase before. I could go on about the research all day, but I'll stop there because I'm really keen to introduce today's speakers. But if you haven't already, then really do encourage you to head to our Community Matters magazine, where you can find out more and also find out what your community currently looks like as well. But for now, back to our Ask Me Anything. Today, I'm joined by four great e-commerce voices. We have Krische from Octane, we have Rachel Tyers from Okendo, Olivia Stapp from Justuno, and James White from Nosto. They're going to be answering all the questions that you've already submitted, but if you do have anything else that you'd like to know, then please drop your questions into the Zoom Q&A box and we'll do our best to get to them. If we run out of time, don't worry, we'll answer all of your questions in our follow-up content as well. So without further ado, over to our speakers. Can I ask that each of you introduces yourselves, and perhaps as a little icebreaker, you could tell us if you're a member of any brand communities that you particularly like at the moment. James, you're first on my screen. Let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. I'm James. I head up the UK and Nordic team at Nosto. Communities that I'm part of. My family household probably is one at the moment. It's about the only community I've been allowed to be involved in. I guess online, I'm a cyclist. I don't know if anyone shops at LoyaltyLion. It's like a UK cycling brand. They've got a loyalty program. I'm not sure if it's powered by LoyaltyLion or not. You can tell me. But they've actually recently converted me from a definite lurker to someone who's pretty engaged. And I'm probably going to steal some of their kind of ideas when I get asked questions later in this panel, actually. So yeah, LoyaltyLion probably is the brand that I'm most engaged with online. Probably Rafa Cycling as well. Both pretty good at engaging me in their community.
I love what LoyaltyLion's been doing actually with their Strava challenges. I keep getting sort of 10, 15% discounts by hitting a certain number of miles on Strava. It's great.
You've stolen all my examples.
I didn't say a word. Amazing. Thanks, James. Olivia, how about you?
Yes, awesome. So my name is Olivia, and I am the manager of the client success and strategy department with Justuno. Been with the company for coming into 4 years now. And I used to work in marketing before I kind of moved over to the customer success and CRO land. And so I spent a lot of time actually managing brand communities. And at this point, I have a very heavy investment in some communities that I participate on, especially in social media. So I would say Killstar has been one of the ones that's kept me pretty loyal. I am part of their Facebook group, and they're really great about something that I call, and I talk to a lot of my merchants about, called a hype cycle. So keeping that hype of the new releases and when new clothing comes out. So they definitely have me hooked. So, firsthand of community definitely matters.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you. Rachel, how about you?
Hello, I'm Rachel Tyers. I head up strategic partnerships over at Okendo Ratings and Reviews. I've been in D2C and digital marketing for over 10 years now. And I would say that my favorite customer community that I'm a part of is Sephora's Beauty Insiders program. It's really good. The gifts that you get and when you're earning points, and I would class myself as more of a lurker and drifter, but Sephora managed to reel me in.
They are, yeah, they're our best in class example usually, most definitely. Brilliant, thank you. And Katie, last but not least.
Hello, I'm Katie, Marketing and Partnerships Manager at Octane AI. And so I was going to say Rafa because they do a really great job, but recently Nut Pods has been like up and coming. And so I've been a bit of a lurker. I purchased Nut Pods, and then the other week I actually tweeted and mentioned them in the tweet, and they liked and replied to it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually a real human, and it really gave a face to the brand. So I would say Nut Pods.
Amazing. It's really interesting to hear sort of you on the receiving end of that, actually, because it's something people value so much, I think. Yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's really great to have all of you here today. Let's get stuck into some of our questions that we've already had submitted. So I'm going to start at the very beginning of the community lifecycle. And James, I think this question probably fits best for Nosto, but if you had to pick one campaign for lurkers and drifters that would help re-engage them as community members, what would it be?
Yeah, I think one campaign's difficult, but I think for me, what converted me actually most recently from a persistent lurker, drifter, absentee in most loyalty programs that I've ever been invited to was Locale, actually. So I had an account, I connected my Strava, like I said, you've stolen all my things already. they actually, I think the one campaign is the campaign that unifies the different parts of the loyalty program together. So the first thing they got me on was the Strava Connect, and then that gave me a discount code for a particular range. And then they paired that with an email offer for a bundle on that particular range with a secondary discount, advertising the fact that if I got those two things together, I would get like X amount off. And I kind of sat there looking at the email, I did the maths in my head, and I was like, this is too good to be true. I've got to just buy this, even though I have like 10 lots of cycling shorts. And my girlfriend's going to say, why are you wearing those? You look ridiculous. I need them for cycling. So I think it's about, when you've got a classic lurker like myself, you're never going to convert them with one specific thing. Like the email, the Strava thing itself wasn't enough. Even the discount code wasn't enough. The chance to earn points wasn't enough. But the two things paired together, I don't know if they did the timing on purpose to give me this like critical discount that I felt I would never, ever get again, led me to hook up my Strava, which now sees me ticking up points every day. So I checked my Locale account 3 times this week when I haven't been on it ever before. And I made a purchase. So they got me on that as well. So yeah, one campaign, probably not, but trying to pair up and dovetail your marketing campaigns, your on-site content together so that you kind of get this like super FOMO experience where even the most kind of like robust of us trying to like resist the chance to become a member or engage properly just have to concede that it's too good to be true, and they need to do it. And then what happened to me as well, which I never do, they sent me a mention me, like send this to different people to get a discount, and I went and sent it to like 15 people on WhatsApp. I felt
you actually referred.
Yeah, I did it like 15 times, and I was like, who even uses this? I even said to someone, sorry, I'm sending this, who even uses this? But I did it. I'm just waiting now, hopefully, that someone will make a purchase. So yeah.
Well, if you went on social media and shouted about how great your new shorts are, then you might find people do. Well, I don't know what your social presence is like. I'm not sure if you're an influencer or not. But
is zero. I've abandoned social media, but yeah, I've got to resort to WhatsApp. That's all I can do.
But that's very good supportive behavior. They'll get you as an insider very soon, definitely. Amazing. Thank you, James. I think the first thing is obviously getting to know your community. And I've got a great question from Rosamond here, which is, how do I really get to know my community? Is it possible that there are several subsets within my community? I think that's really interesting because that's definitely possible. It probably depends a little bit on the products you're selling. For example, if you are a sports store and you're selling to different types of athletes, you know, you've got cyclists who are interested in cycling, you've got runners who are interested in running. That's multiple communities within your main community. So I think for me, it's all about your first party data collection, and then how do you use it to form your subgroups. Anybody else got any thoughts on, you know, is it possible that there are several subsets within my community, and how do I get to know them?
Yeah, definitely. I'll jump in there. I think something that's really helpful when you're using a robust reviews platform is that you can have your customers self-identify in their review. So for example, we work with Born Primitive, an athleisure brand, and they're collecting first-party data around performance. So is this customer using the product for CrossFit or yoga, or are they just wearing it day to day? So they're able to learn more about the customers and then personalize the offering based on those characteristics of the person.
Brilliant.
Further piggybacking off of what Rachel said, this is kind of that great opportunity with Justuno, is if you are, you know, you have an on-site pop-up, right, collecting a lead, you can also use on-site pop-ups depending on your email service provider to collect additional information and actually further use that information to split your lists and market to those individual communities and actually build them up that way as well.
Brilliant. And then a lot of the marketing can probably be sort of, well, cloned and repurposed with a few nice small tweaks that make really good targeted community comms. Definitely. Brilliant. Thank you. And Katie, I think this leads really nicely onto, obviously, Octane AI have been doing a lot around quizzes to collect first-party data. And so I've got a question here. Do you have any advice on how to use quizzes to actually build up a community?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So quizzes are really cool. So like at face value, the customer comes to your site. It's just a cool experience. They answer all of these questions. But at the back end, you actually get all of that data. So kind of like Rachel was saying, you have then the ability to see, okay, how much does this person engage depending on the questions that you want to ask them. A really cool thing that you can do is if you want to send people like retargeting quizzes, you can also do that. So you could have a quiz on your main site, but you could also have quizzes that aren't live on your site that you either use in advertising or that you actually just send to your VIP customers. So if you wanted to collect like product feedback, if you wanted to ask questions about the brand, you could actually do that with a quiz. And so it's kind of fun, but also helps you collect data. And then you could actually use that in retargeting. So if you sent your VIP, like loyalty program members, a specific quiz on a new product launch, if they had specific answers, you could actually retarget them with ads when that product launches, or retarget them with different emails when the product launches. So it's really cool. You can do a lot, especially if you're collecting first-party data. You can leverage it in so many ways.
That's very cool. And I know that, I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it was something like 35% of people are motivated to undertake community-based activities by being able to get kind of early access to products. And obviously, if you can give your community early access to products, the feedback you'll get from them it'll inform, you know, all future products, and it's just the best source of information, really. That's awesome. Thinking more about the on-site side of things, and tools and technology, how you use them together. Olivia, this one's probably for you. What part do you think on-site pop-ups can play when it comes to supporting a brand community and a community experience on the website?
Oh, I think that they play a massive role in multiple ways. So, you know, the first role is not only gathering people into that community and spreading the word on site to your organic traffic, to turn that organic traffic into community members and build that loyalty, right? So you can use promotions to promote your loyalty programs. You can use promotions to, like we said, use that collection data to further segment as well. But then as well, you can target people coming in specifically from these communities. So let's say, you know, you have a community on Facebook, or you have a community on specifically like email, and you're sending out an email blast to them. You can use UTMs in those email blasts when people click through to then target promotions at them, right? So like James said, getting the right messaging and the right offers in front of people, those lurkers and those drifters at the right time, can convert them. And I think, you know, using that personalized messaging and having those people feel very, very involved, especially with that, like, you know, hey, welcome back to the site, or hey, welcome, you know, we see you're a part of our community. Here's this exclusive discount for you to really, and we can use targeting to go as far as to target these lurkers who haven't made a purchase previously. So you're really, really, you know, narrowing down to get that, you know, those community people to not only, you know, build up that community, create more people in the community, but use it to then message to that community upon its return to your on-site messaging.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really interesting to see the difference between, you know, drifters won't even open your emails, lurkers will open them, but they won't click. It's not until you get to supporters that people are actually starting to click through on those emails. So that's brilliant. Great advice. Thank you. I have a question here from Ida. This is one of my favorite questions about loyalty programs more generally, actually, but what kind of conversions are important to building a community, and how do you optimize them? I think the reason this is one of my favorite questions around loyalty programs generally is that when we talk about conversions, so often we're just thinking about purchases, but in the world of loyalty programs, there are millions of different conversions that are really valuable. And that absolutely goes for communities as well. I think, you know, you want to think about the conversions that will be valuable to your brand in future, things like, you know, the referrals that James has just made for Nicole, you know, that's just as valuable a conversion, or okay, not just as valuable, but it's a very valuable conversion that isn't a purchase. So is signing up to a newsletter, etc. You know, there's so many different ones. So yeah, open up to the floor. What kinds of conversions do you think are important in building a community?
Yes, I've just been thinking about this one a little bit. I guess, yeah, a lot of those that I mentioned earlier, I think they've all been valuable, and I think it's realizing the first step to building a community is not getting them to a purchase. That's, you know, that's not the first conversion that you're looking for. I think if you go back to your product or your brand, and you think about people naturally want to be part of something, they want to be part of something that they feel genuinely involved with, not just that they bought from you. And I think like the other way is competition or competitiveness. So I think Nicole does a good job with the Strava hookup. You earn points by basically riding, and the more you ride, the more you get. That's kind of like playing on the competition part. I think the other part is, I think people feel like they're really, you know, part of a bigger cause than themselves. So, you know, if you look at like Finisterre or to be honest, even Rafa, they play much more on the lifestyle side of a sports retail brand. And so I think it's the first step is getting people to just engage with your content. That's a really soft conversion. So getting people to open your emails that aren't trying to sell them anything. Then the next step might be getting them to sign up for an account or join the club, you know, show up for a club ride. Then everyone sees you're wearing like the Rafa club gear. That's your first purchase. Then the next step is, you know, buying into the brand. And I think if you try and visualize these steps and with your first purchase being the last thing, that can get you, I think, really a long way. And then it gets way more exciting once they've made their first purchase, because you've got a lot more levers that you can pull. But the first one is definitely the hardest, like most businesses.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to add to that?
I think something that people can do, like I think the magazine that we all worked on, it did a really good job of defining the different personas. But if you can actually go deeper and say, okay, what does a lurker look like for my brand, and set those definitions on like who is an engaged community member, and then try to track engagement in any way that you can. So like if you collect an email via Justuno and then that person gives reviews through Okendo, like you can do a lot if you have any type of marketing opt-in, and then you can actually track like okay, if I think that people who open my emails, click through, make a purchase, send a referral, those are all really engaged people. You can start to segment those audiences for your brand.
Absolutely. And then, you know what, who's most valuable, you know where to focus most of your attention and your efforts. Amazing, thank you. It's interesting, actually, James, going back to your point, one of my favorite examples of community, particularly through the pandemic, has been a jewelry brand, Astrid and Miu. And the content they've produced throughout the last 12 months has just been amazing. And they're literally building their community around it. And, it's jewelry. It's not, for some people, it's probably the most engaging topic. For me, I just like how it looks. I don't have much of a passion for it, but they've actually really connected with me around their brand because of the things that they're passionate about as a brand and the way they've written about it. So I think you're absolutely right. It's about finding something to say that draws somebody in the first place is really, really important.
Yeah, if you think about like Gymshark, for example, I know everyone brings up Gymshark on basically every single webinar, like all the time. So it's maybe boring for people that have heard this before. If you look at their social media presence, I don't think they have a loyalty program, but if you look at their social media presence, you engage with it, you feel like you're part of the community. And if you're not excited about sportswear, like Gymshark will make you excited about sportswear, like without much trouble. They're passionate about causes. They take a stand on things that mean something to them. And I think that's quite a bold move for a brand. And that it's like when you meet really like people that you gravitate towards, you like pull towards them because they have like clear opinions. And I think brands really struggle to do that because they're so worried about pissing people off normally or pissing off one group of people. But actually, to get people engaged with you, you have to take some kind of position. And I think Gymshark have done that in lots of ways, particularly over the pandemic and with not a lot else going on apart from the ability to exercise on your own. It's made them even more engaging than they were before. I think they've done an excellent job without even an official loyalty program, I guess.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's one of the best examples out there, and it's interesting as well because I guess there is a sense of for something like for you it's cycling, for someone else it will be swimming, for someone else it's fashion or beauty, but it's for some brands it's perhaps a little harder to find that thing to bring people together around, and that's where actually your brand story becomes the thing that people can gravitate around. So actually, if you are selling something, if it is maybe jewelry, which you can post pictures of yourself wearing it, but there's a little bit less to talk about there. But perhaps actually it's, well, why did you set up that brand in the first place, and why does it matter to you? And that's what you connect with your customers on, and that's what you form a community around. So I think, but Gymshark have done it absolutely beautifully. And there might be some brands out there who are thinking, but it's exercise. There are people that love exercise. Well, how am I going to do it? Perhaps it is thinking about your brand story, because Gymshark's story is one of my favorites. He built it in a garage. It's so I think everybody's got a reason that they set up their store that they should be sharing a lot, and particularly in content. We digress slightly, but Rachel, I wanted to come back to you. You mentioned reviews earlier, and I think going back to our past question, obviously reviews are a form of a conversion that's actually really valuable as well. So how would you say that reviews can help you to create a stronger customer community?
It's a good question. I think that reviews are quite unique in that you're actually opening up a two-way dialogue with your customer. So if you're able to show that you're listening to them and you care about their opinions and what they have to say about your product, then you're more likely to sort of form that community bond. So you might be collecting data points in your reviews around comfort, quality, sizing, taste, and anything that you really want to learn more about in your product. And then once you act on that, so you're getting some poor reviews around the taste, you can kind of adjust your recipe and make sure that you're able to really please your customer base. You can sort of do the same thing with the question and answer widget on the PDP as well, making sure that if your customers have any uncertainties or any questions, you can answer them really quickly and effectively. And then you're able to display those questions for any future customers that might have the same sort of concerns. Moving on from that, of course, I mentioned before, but with the data that we're collecting on your customer base, we're able to personalize campaigns, maybe in email marketing, so that you're able to really put relevant recommendations in front of your audience base. So maybe it's product recommendations, maybe it's an educational campaign, and you have data on someone's skin type or their skin concerns, and you can provide them really relevant content based on what they've already told you. And then I think a huge thing is having that social proof of the ratings, reviews, customer user-generated content on the site, because that just goes to show shoppers that, hey, I do have this really engaged community. People love my products. This is how people are using them or how they're wearing them. And you're able to kind of like James mentioned before, have people feel like they're a part of something bigger. So people really like that feeling.
Absolutely, and I think it goes back to what I said in my kind of introduction. One of the key drivers that we found made people want to join a community or to participate in the community actions was it kind of improving their own shopping experiences and being able to interact with people who've already made those purchases, being able to hear it from the horse's mouth, really, and see how the product has worked out for other people. It's so important. And I know when I was looking for a bit niche, but I was looking for I'm a sailor and I was looking for a new buoyancy aid the other day, and I could not find any reviews on any of the ones I wanted to buy, and it made me really nervous. I almost didn't, and now I've become that awful shopper that is going to probably return something because I couldn't find the information. So it's really interesting how much we've come to rely on that kind of content now, but it's quite a key driver in making people want to become part of your brand community as well.
For sure.
And it's one of those important, it's actually something that we communicate with our clients often, like it's a pain point, right? Like you just said, that people are going to a site and if they're not seeing reviews and they don't have the details they need, they'll exit or they'll abandon. And actually this is a really great opportunity for on-site like reviews in a pop-up to be like, hey, here's what our community is saying, and making that information a little bit more accessible. But also not only that, soliciting for those reviews if somebody's returning back to site after, like, let's say 14 days, or 30 days, to make sure they've had time to use the product, and saying, hey, we noticed you made a purchase, like, are you interested in a review for maybe a discount, or maybe are you just interested in reviewing the product, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that the time frame on that's really interesting, isn't it? You kind of want to catch people after they've had a great unboxing experience, but actually that's not necessarily when they've got the best things to say about the product, because it might be in 6 months' time when they're sort of like, I still use this every day. That's the best testimonial that you could get, but it's a bit of a longer term game that way around. Fantastic, thank you. So a question here from Trang. What are the first steps you take to build a community, and how do you incorporate that into your loyalty program? This is probably one for me. I'll kick it off. But I think for me, it's important to look at the marketing that you're already doing and look at where you can integrate a message around community there. So have you got rules or rewards set up that could be driving community-based actions? Things like, are you offering points for following on social media? Are you offering points for reviews, referrals, all of that really good stuff? But also then, if you're sending loyalty program emails, don't send different emails about your community. Work the community messaging into your reward available reminders, your point statements, etc. It could be more about working. The first step is working the community angle into what you're already doing instead of treating it as a separate flow. And then I think, we've already talked about the importance of communicating your brand story, and think about the different ways you could use your loyalty program to do that. So we've got stores who have custom rewards and rules set up around the charities that matter to them as a brand, or people that are giving points for recycling packaging and things like that. If you can find the things that you have in common with your customers and then create some rules and rewards around those things, then that's a pretty powerful way to build up your community base as well. And opening up to the floor, I've kind of stolen that one, but does anybody have anything else to add in terms of what are the first steps to building a community, and how does your loyalty program fit?
I guess one thing to think about, I nearly mentioned it earlier, was when you were saying about, well, I'm not sure what my thing is to get someone that's not just buying my product. I think that's a really good place to start, is what is my value proposition apart from just this transaction and the value of this product to a person. And if you don't really have anything, then maybe a community is not for you. Maybe it is just a transaction product. But ultimately, there's probably a community in everything that we're doing. And if your product is valuable to customers, there's probably something behind it that can foster a community. So it's probably like a bit of a company level, or maybe a personal introspection into like what is your value? What else can you bring apart from just supplying this product to a customer at the best price? I'm working on that because, you know, we've got department stores with loyalty programs that work really well, and they're just a department store. So they've provided some value outside of just the purchase. So what's yours? I think I'm not a loyalty expert, but that's how I definitely see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that exercise with so many different brands. It would be so interesting. Anybody else want to jump in there?
We recently did an event with Beard Brand, Tracy Martin, and Snow Teeth Whitening, which are 3 really good community-driven brands. The thing that they said started them all off was engagement. So like free to do, but answering DMs, like replying back to comments, like simple two-way engagement, it can do a lot more than you think. So that was really their #1 tip.
Amazing. That's really helpful. And I think that resonates with our research as well, which said, you know, people are motivated to join because they want that two-way conversation with a brand. They feel like that they can talk to a brand itself and be responded to, and that's really powerful. Brilliant, thank you. Question from, well, 2 questions here, which I'm going to combine into one. So we have Isabel and Peter. Isabel would like to know, how can community help you to avoid giving discounts to people who would have bought anyway? And on a similar vein, Peter would like to know, how do you add value to your community so it's not just another channel that you're bombarding with sales? So I guess to bring the 2 together, how can community help you avoid discounts and constant sales periods? Anybody want to kick us off with that one?
I think, yeah, I'm being really boring here, but if you're speaking to something that within someone that appeals to them that's higher than just the product for the best price, for example, then I think that that can generate a huge amount of like goodwill. So the loyalty program or the community is a way of fostering that. If you look at Patagonia, right, there's you could buy their products or similar products from loads of different companies. You could buy it for probably cheaper and it'd be just as good. But when they send you emails every week about this causes they're supporting and the, you know, like whatever they're doing in Patagonia in Chile, or this conservation campaign they're running, you're kind of like, if part of my money going to that jacket is going to that cause, that's a reason that I would buy from them and not, you know, X other outdoor wear company. So I think, you know, if you don't want to go down the discount route, like Locale, for example, with loyalty, you've got to provide some higher purpose or intrinsic value that someone has. And not everyone will align with that, but at least you've got to speak to something. You can't just expect to create a loyalty program, have nothing, and then not give any discounts. Otherwise, what's the incentive, or what's the incentive for your community?
Yeah, very good point. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would add, I mean, I really like the way that Sephora does it, because they'll give you a present when it's your birthday. They'll give you a gift when you hit certain point milestones. And then Sephora knows what kind of skincare products I like. They'll let me know when there is a new drop coming, or maybe when they have come into the samples section. So it's providing relevant information to me as a consumer. So although they're not offering me discounts, very rarely do they offer discounts, just at the certain sale times, but they're providing content that I want to be consuming. So I'm part of that community because they're keeping me engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely got some thoughts on this, but anybody else before I jump in?
So revisiting that, like the social media kind of, you know, hype cycles of having, you know, release dates of, you know, people know their things get released on Wednesdays of this, you know, this day of the month kind of thing. limited edition items even that are exclusive, you can only get if you're part of the community members. I have quite a few clients that are very, very discount averse and have no trouble, having a community and promoting a community. Like you said, those exclusive ability to have early access to items, early drops, that is a really, really great way. And then, it's almost like this cult-like development of these people who, get really excited about your brand, and you invite them into, with Killstar, they have a lot of the brand influencers on the Facebook group as well. And the brand influencers also model the clothing. And so you get this direct connection with the clothing and communication with the brand itself. And just that alone, I think really, really helps people be heard and feel like they're part of that brand and build that loyalty.
Yeah, definitely. I think you basically you've taken the words out of my mouth, but it's all about the experience, isn't it? And I think there's loads of opportunities to be delivering value that actually don't cost you anything as a brand. So, giving a select group of people early access to a sale or early access to a new product, that doesn't cost you anything, but it's hugely valuable to those people. And then there's those additional things that we've talked about, like being part of a product tester panel or that kind of thing. That's actually, these don't cost you anything as a brand, whereas a discount would. And you can also use things like double points days. And obviously, the more you're giving away points, yes, they're going to be redeemed in return for something, but they are also going to cause a person to come back and shop again sooner. So instead of doing a discount day, do a double points day. You've locked in the next purchase. There's definitely some great alternatives, and I think community just drives those things. It gives you that forum to deliver those experiences instead of discounts. Brilliant, thank you. Next question. How do I track my community? This is from Marissa. So perhaps the best way to do this is to think about the tool that you're representing and think about how would you track community within that space. Katie, I'm going to pick on you first.
Thank you. So we do Messenger, SMS, and quizzes. With anything marketing related, I would just do it by actual engagement. Like, are they clicking through on text messages? Are they engaging or sending messages back to you on Facebook Messenger, for example? So those are things that you can track, and then you can actually add them to different lists and then start segmenting by that. Quizzes are really cool because you can see who finishes it. You can see like what their answers to questions are. So because you can ask them any question, you can basically determine how engaged or not they are based on whatever definitions that you have.
Brilliant, thank you. Rachel, how about you? Reviews, what can you do to track your community there?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a good idea to be creating segments in your ESP based on the information that you're receiving in your reviews. So whether that is customer attributes, product attributes, or maybe brand advocates, like how many people have left you multiple 5-star reviews and how can I treat them differently or create, a special experience for them because they are such a strong part of my community. And then how do I create a more engaged audience out of those people that maybe are having a negative experience with the brand. Maybe they've left a 3-star or less review. So are you creating a ticket in the help desk so that your team can reach out and create a better experience with those customers? Or maybe there's a post-review follow-up in Klaviyo that's just automated and you don't need to worry about it too much, but you are providing that support and making sure that your customers are going on to have a nice experience after that.
Right, you just made me think I'd love to know whether people move backwards and forwards between supporters and drifters and lurkers and things. But is there a correlation between the reviews that they leave and things like that? That would be fascinating to know. Olivia, how about on-site? How would you track your community?
It's all about targeting, right? So it's about using, if we're, talking specifically Justuno, it's about, targeting that reminding of somebody who would be, is a community member or would become a community member. It's about, reminding people of your loyalty programs when you have those point programs and using that on-site messaging to to, you know, find those opportunities and develop that kind of targeting. And as you get to know, you know, who these real loyal people are, and you know, you learn their behaviors, you can build these targeting audiences towards them, right? So making sure you have messaging towards them, making sure that you are communicating that they are, you know, special, right? And or encouraging them to become part of that. And I think that that's, you know, utilizing that targeting and utilizing those surveys and those quizzes on site are going to just continue to help you like monitor those communities and see who they are. And then as well, you know, those engagements, the engagements with the lead captures, the engagements with the loyalty programs and stuff, and keeping an eye on things that are like specific audiences of lurkers, you know, targeting these people who have not made a purchase, or targeting people who haven't made a purchase in a long time as well. So thinking about those audiences that might need a little extra love as well, and might need to be brought back in or re-engaged.
Fantastic, thank you. James, how about you? How do you track my communities? And personalization, I guess, is the key for you.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to be honest, we do it with LoyaltyLion on Shopify, I guess probably the best, but understanding the different segments or the loyalty segments or tiers, depending on how you set up your system, and then having those within Nosto. So from a Nosto or a personalization perspective, essentially loyalty tiers are segments or groups of customers, and then using that segment of customers, you can see ultimately how they grow, the average order value of those customers. So when they move from, let's say, a lurker to lurker to fully engaged, you know, I think supporter, is supporter the last one? Sorry, I'm really
insider, supporter,
insider. There we go. When you move from a lurker to an insider, for example, is there a massive AOV bump? If so, if yes, then what action do we need to take? So I think monitoring like the KPIs between customer groups or tiers, I think is super important, and you should be able to do that in your personalization, marketing, segmentation tools, data tools, whatever you're using. And then those insights then translate to the type of campaigns that you'll use to motivate change and changes between those tiers. So if you can see the big difference from one to the other, which you obviously normally do, making a massive effort to do that.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you, guys. The last of our pre-submitted questions. What's the best way to build an authentic community on a budget? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I mean, social media is free. Everyone here has talked about social media. It's free to use social media. Like I mentioned, Gymshark, Patagonia, you know, I don't think they have any kind of like official loyalty programs. They're just talking about things they're passionate about. Yes, they might spend the occasional hundreds of thousands of dollars on like very slick promotional videos and things like that. You don't have to do that. You can talk about your brand and the values that you stand behind, the pillars that your business is built on. That's free. No one's going to charge you for that.
Very good point. Absolutely. I think for me, it's the other thing is making sure that your whole team's aligned on it. So it's not just the marketing team that's putting effort behind it. You know, get your customer support team encouraging people to sign up and take those actions. Get your, if you've got a physical store, make sure that you're in, like the people in the store know about it and are encouraging people to join. I think if you can get the backing of your whole team aligned around a community, then you'll find it becomes a bit more effective with less effort almost. Right. Any other thoughts on that one?
I think a great tip is collecting and displaying authentic content from your customer base, and maybe tiering rewards based on the action that you want a customer to take. So maybe they get 10% off for a text review, 15% off for a text review with a photo, and maybe if they add a video, it's 20% off. And then you're able to actually use any of that UGC content for advertising your brand. Or maybe you're going to set up a refer a friend for that segment of customers that give you a 5-star review, or other ideas like maybe putting that segment of 5-star reviewers into a lookalike audience on Facebook. Although it costs a little bit more if you're paying Facebook for your ads, I think that being able to identify people that have similar characteristics to your brand ambassadors or brand advocates, that goes a long way.
Definitely. And I think the more you can sort of work that kind of thing into your ads, the more it's going to be worth paying that little bit extra to keep them running. Definitely. Amazing. Thanks, guys. So another question from Marissa now. Is there best practice on how to re-engage customers who haven't actually purchased but have signed up for your emails? So for example, she says that they've used points expiry in the past, but curious to see if you've got any other suggestions about re-engaging customers who they're signed up, they're subscribed, but they haven't actually made that purchase.
Hop in on this one since this is big Justuno territory. So this is prime opportunity to engage these people with not only loyalty messaging, your points about to expire, but communicating things like trying to get a higher value engagement. Like you can get an SMS capture targeted at these people. These are people that also, it might be that time for, if you guys are open to the discounting, doing that special discount for, hey, welcome back. Somebody signed up. How about this special discount today? Making it very, limited time option. I like that, your points are about to expire, because it really does, it sells that not exclusivity, but the urgency of, urgency in copy and kind of motion tends to help push people over there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks, Olivia. Any other comments there?
I think if you're able to segment higher funnel content or higher funnel, like move the goalpost from I want them to purchase again to like I just want them to re-engage on email, or I just want them to go back to my site one time. So try and make that goal a little bit shorter, and then maybe like if you're launching a new product and you can get feedback or you can get access early, send them an email about that and just try to get them engaged that way. So it's not necessarily like, hey, purchase again, but it's more just, hey, come back to our site and like re-engage with us.
Yeah, a slightly longer game, but hopefully with a better outcome at the end.
I think it's about remembering that, when you're a brand, your A to B is customer on the site, purchase, right? That's a very straight line. But when you're a customer on the site, I'm at this webinar, I've got this other screen where I've got something on, I've got something on my phone, I've got all these things. So my path to purchasing from you is extremely convoluted. And it's just about recognizing that. So I think you've just mentioned in here, Marissa, again, you've talked about striking subject lines, like you said goodbye, like, is this goodbye kind of thing might be a good one. But I think it's just about recognizing like what's the time between them signing up and then, and them giving up on you completely, because you'll have this period where customers start to lapse. And during that time is your opportune moment to nurture them, showcase reviews, as Rachel's mentioned. There's a couple of different ways that you can do that, but just respecting the fact that they're not going to come from A to B in your mind straight away. They've got A to B to C. You're probably Z on their list of things, and it's just trying to keep them, reminding them as they jump from one thing to another that you are a destination they should be revisiting. Ways to do that, there are millions. We could be here forever, so it's not particularly helpful, but
yeah, it's essentially so that there's something in there about habit forming, though, isn't there? Like James, you were saying about checking your points balance on Nicole twice this week, and somebody else mentioned that there were brands that always drop their products on a Wednesday or something. And there's perhaps something about getting a kind of regular calendar of when you send out great content or when you launch things that could maybe help drive that a bit. But amazing. I'm just going to squeeze in one more question. So this is from Rob. He'd like to know, do you think the levers to pull for a community differ between luxury brands where the purchases are fewer and further between, and kind of your FMCG where you're purchasing all the time? Putting you on the spot there. Anybody got any thoughts? I think, to be honest, for me, it comes back to the idea that there are multiple different conversions, and they're equally valuable to your brand. And with a luxury brand, it's going to take longer for the purchase conversion to happen. So think of all the points of value that customers could be adding for you, and you could be adding for them in the interim.
I think if you split them out, FMCG is often repeat purchase, right? It's food, consumables, generally cheaper products, and there are normally pretty solid alternatives to most of these. So price definitely becomes a defining factor. As much as you want to put value on your bar of soap and why your soap is better than everyone else's, you can buy soap a million places and it's all basically the same, and there's sustainable soap and not sustainable soap. So it does come down to price and like loyalty through retention and discounting and that kind of thing. I think when you look at luxury, it is a very different ball game. You've got a much longer period between an FMCG is often a distress purchase as well. You're hungry, you need something, you've run out of soap, you need it, you've run out of toilet paper, you need to go and get it straight away, whatever those things are. Luxury is much more considered, time to purchase is much longer. So, and you could be looking at one luxury kitchen table and another luxury kitchen table. It might come down to the reviews, the quality of the delivery, the craftsmanship, how it held up. And you'll be looking for those cues over the time that you're considering that product, and the higher value, the longer the consideration process normally, unless you're completely loaded. So I think it's just respecting those dynamics and not trying to get too carried away that your fast moving consumer good is going to be the defining factor of whether it's purchased again or not is your brand values. It's probably going to come down to something a lot more fickle, sadly.
I think that's fair.
On the luxury side, I think it's really about how do I create this community or this feeling of exclusivity, or that my customers are VIPs and I treat them like that. Just given the nature of the luxury market, that's what you should be sort of aiming towards for as consumers.
Yeah, definitely. It's not a space I shop in too often, unfortunately. But, amazing. Well, I'm afraid that time's run away again. I've gone over time, but that's all the questions we've got time for. I'd like to say a really big thank you to all four of our speakers. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us today and sharing your expertise. Thank you to everybody listening and to everyone who submitted questions either during the session or ahead of time as well. As I said, if we didn't get to your question, we'll do our best to address it in our follow-up content or actually in next week's session as well. Also, if later on while you're cooking your dinner or walking the dog, you think of something else you'd like to ask, then please go ahead and submit another question and we'll tackle it next week during our third and final Community AMA. Remember, if you haven't read the Community Matters magazine already, it's packed full of everything we've discussed today and more, some really great examples from brands as well. One last big thank you to our speakers, and look forward to seeing you all here again next week for the final of our Community AMA. Oh, quick question. Will we have access to the recordings? Yes, they're all available on demand on the website as well. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.